Hey guys, this is Neil Woods. I'm an attorney with Woods & Woods Attorneys, and today we're going to talk about individual unemployability benefits. I think one of the best ways to start this is to explain to veterans there's a lot of different names for individual unemployability benefits, and a lot of people don't realize they're actually the same thing. Total disability individual unemployability is the formal name, and it's also called TDIU benefits, IU benefits, individual unemployability, VA unemployability. So you can see how a lot of veterans that are applying for these benefits get confused just because there's so many different terms for the same thing. So today we're going to go through individual employability benefits and just kind of cover a lot of the basic questions that clients ask us when they first call. To start off, individual unemployability benefits are strictly for veterans that have employment issues from their service-connected disabilities. If you cannot work from non-service connected disabilities, you're not going to be eligible for individual unemployability benefits. Veterans with non-service connected disabilities are only eligible for various forms of pension, while veterans with service connected disabilities are able to get compensation. Individual unemployability benefits fall under the compensation wing. Let's kind of just start off. Basically, these are a lot of the most common questions that veterans ask us. The first one is, do I need both mental and physical conditions to get IU benefits? No, you don't. Now, granted, the large number of clients that we are able to get individual unemployability benefits do have a combination of mental and physical disabilities. The reason being, let's just say you have really severe mental disabilities, that's probably going to keep you out of a workplace like an office. And then if you also have the physical disability side, you're going to be kept out of workplaces like a construction site, loading docks, things that require physical activity. You can get individual unemployability benefits for either mental or physical conditions, or both. The next one is, will the VA consider all my conditions for IU benefits? The VA is going to really consider only two different types of conditions for individual unemployability benefits. The first one is direct service-connected disabilities. Those are injuries that happen directly from your service. And the other type of benefit that they're going to accept is secondary service-connected conditions. What if the VA says I'm not eligible under the VA unemployability requirements? This is pretty common. The VA does not just like to hand out individual unemployability ratings. And so a very, very large number of veterans are forced to go into the appeals process. If you received your denial on individual unemployability benefits within the last 1 year, you can appeal. You can look on your rating decision letter that you received from the VA, and it's going to have a date on there by when you must file an appeal. If you have let that appeal period collapse, you can file a new application and start the whole process over. Now that's kind of the long way to do it, but at least you're not going to be completely barred from getting individual unemployability benefits. What if my disabilities have worsened since my last rating decision? So if you received a rating decision more than a year ago, and since then your conditions have worsened and you now cannot work, you can file an increased rating application, and you can notate on there that you cannot work, and then that's when you can go after your individual unemployability benefits. So, just to kind of recap what happens there, a veteran, let's say in 2016, received a decision for a back injury and they got a 40% rating. Here we are a few years down the road. The back condition has worsened and it now is preventing that veteran from working. And secondary to the back condition, they may have some other things that are popping up now that the condition's gotten worse. So now what you can do is just file a new increased rating application and go after IU benefits. The next one is, should I apply for individual unemployability benefits if I have a 100% rating? It doesn't really make sense to do it. Your individual unemployability benefits pay veterans at the 100% rate. So if you're already receiving 100% rating, you're not going to get any more compensation monthly if you obtain an individual unemployability rating. And the other thing is, if you already have 100% rating and you reopen that to try to get individual unemployability, the VA is going to re-review your medical documents. And if you let them do that, then you're going to give them a chance to where they could actually decrease the amount of monthly benefits that you're receiving. The next one is, are IU benefits permanent? No, they're not always permanent. Now, you can get a permanent and total rating that says basically my conditions are not going to improve, therefore the VA should never re-examine my rating. But I will warn you, permanent and total ratings, that's not something the VA just likes to hand out again, because a lot of conditions the VA views as they could get better through time with treatment. So you know whether you have conditions that are permanent and total and whether you should actually go after it. But just like I said, I warn you, they're not handed out left and right. So can a veteran receive individual unemployment benefits if they're working? Yes, veterans can actually receive individual unemployability benefits if they're working. Now here's the problem with that. You're trying to argue to the VA that you cannot work and you have a job. So a lot of these claims are going to be denied. If you're currently working, getting individual unemployability benefits can be pretty tough. We generally prefer, like when a client comes to us for individual employability benefits, that they are not working. And the reason for that is the VA just does not, once again, hand out individual unemployability ratings to people who are working. Now there's a couple situations that you could get these IU benefits if you are working. The first thing is you have to be under the individual unemployability income limits. So there's a cap on what you can get, and it varies from year to year. It's based upon the poverty level. If you're currently employed and you want IU benefits, there's two different types of jobs that really you can have. One is called marginal. Marginal means that you earn at or below the poverty level on the same year as your effective date. Remember that, on the same year as your effective date. That's kind of the important thing on marginal. Sheltered, these are the other type of jobs that you can get individual unemployability benefits with. So basically what that sheltered means is you have accommodations at your job. Accommodations have to be pretty severe too. So what we see a lot of times on veterans that are working and get IU benefits are where they're working for a family member, they're allowed to come and go as they please, they're given freedom that they really wouldn't be given at any other job, but that employer allows them to basically just leave when they want. Sometimes they're not good with clients or because of PTSD. So you see in a lot of family businesses, they allow veterans to do this, to work there. Those veterans can get IU benefits because they're basically unemployable except for the fact that a family member or friend likes them and lets them work there. I just want to stress, it is very, very hard to get IU benefits if you are working. So will the VA consider my assets for individual unemployability? No, they're not going to look at your assets. The only thing that they're going to look at monetary wise is they're going to look at your income level and particularly the year of your effective date. And some people ask, I have a lot of disabled veterans rely on their support systems while they're applying for IU benefits. So, they'll be living with, a cousin and maybe have an aunt that, pays to drive them somewhere all the time and someone else that buys them food and things. If you're receiving help from a network of folks, that is not going to be considered income under the VA's rules. So if you're receiving assistance, friends, families, organizations out there, that's not going to be counted as income. Can I get Social Security disability and individual unemployability? Yes, you actually can. You can get both benefits at the same time. And that's something that we do here at the firm for a lot of clients. I want to warn you, individual employability and Social Security disability insurance are two totally separate programs. And remember, in Social Security, there's two different types. There's supplemental income Social Security, SSI, and then there's SSDI, which is for people who have worked. SSI is for people who have not worked. SSI is going to look at your income limits. So if you have veterans disability benefits, you could be getting enough, it knocks you out. So today we're just going to talk about Social Security disability insurance. Now, that is for people who have worked. You have to gain work credits, so it goes on. But there's some big differences between Social Security and individual unemployability. The first one is they have different regulations, and the VA and the Social Security Administration, their rules are totally separate. Their guidelines are totally separate. They each get to set their own eligibility guidelines. There's not really much overlap. So you can be eligible for one and be denied for the other. That does happen pretty regularly. Just so if you get one, there's no guarantee that you're going to get the other benefit. The other thing is both the Social Security Administration and the VA process claims really differently. Most veterans are going to find that their Social Security claim is settled well before their VA claim ever is. The Social Security Administration really got their stuff together over the last couple years, and they're moving claims through a lot faster. Now, that's not a guarantee. You may be at an office where they're deciding Social Security claims that don't move as fast, but expect a Social Security decision first, and then sometimes years later, the VA disability decision. They're both going to look at different evidence. But one of the other things is they're going to look at conditions differently. Let's just say, for example, veterans disability, you're not knocked out of it if you self-medicate through drugs and alcohol. Let's just say you're a veteran who has severe mental and physical conditions, one of them being PTSD, and you're applying for IU benefits. You're not going to be knocked out of the VA disability game because you use drugs and alcohol to self-medicate for PTSD. Now, when it comes to Social Security disability, if you have drugs and alcohol problems, that can hurt your claim. So that's kind of, each system is going to be looking at the same set of facts, but in a different light. Oh, one thing I want to point out, you do get work credits for your time serving in the military. So if you're trying to get Social Security disability along with individual unemployability, your time in the military, if it was within the last so many years, you're going to get work credits from that. And that's going to count towards your eligibility for Social Security. One of the questions we get a lot is, how much individual unemployability back pay should I get? This really, really varies. For example, right now, if you're missing 12 months of individual unemployability back pay, that's just under $35,000. I mean, that's a lot of money. So if you apply for individual unemployability and the day you file the claim potentially is your effective date. Some veterans, their effective dates, we can go back further for some various reasons. So let's just say it takes the VA a full year to decide your application. They finalize your application, they award you benefits. You're gonna get that whole last year back pay. Now, if you have to go into the appeals process, which a large number of people who want IU benefits have to do, that whole time you're gonna be accruing back pay. So, right now, veterans disability appeals are taking 4 years. And that's not from the date you filed the claim. That's from the date you started the appeal process. But just remember, at the end of it, when you're approved, you're going to get all those back benefits. A lot of veterans find that their back pay is well over $100,000, because if you look at the payment amounts, over $2,900 a month for IU benefits, and then you take 4 years, man, I mean, you're up to 120, 130, somewhere in there. Back pay is just going to vary for every case. Every case is really different. Every veteran is going to have a different effective date, and they're going to process claims differently. So there's no set amount of money that you're going to receive. Let's go through one of the things that a lot of people that call us, the misconceptions about individual unemployability. For some reason, a lot of veterans that call us think if you have a college degree that you are not eligible for individual unemployability benefits. That's not true. If you have a college degree, you can get individual unemployability benefits. I'm not really sure where this rumor came from, but we hear it a lot from veterans that have worked with service organizations, and I don't know if this is just a rumor that they're teaching out there somewhere, but it's not true. If you have a college degree, you can still get IU benefits. Previous denials, that's kind of a lot of people think if they were denied years ago for IU benefits and they didn't appeal, they didn't fight the appeal, or even if you fought the appeal, doesn't matter. If you have a claim from years ago that's closed, it's over with, and you were not awarded IU benefits, that is not necessarily the end of the road for your fight. You can file as many individual unemployability applications as you want. That's kind of a VA disability law secret that a lot of people don't know. They think you have one shot and it's over with, and that's not true. So if you were denied a couple years back and you still can't work from your service-connected disabilities, you may still be eligible. Don't think that was the end of the road for your chance of getting benefits. This is one of the other misconceptions. People believe that National Guard and reservists are not eligible for individual unemployability benefits. Well, they are if they were activated by the federal government. Now, here's where this gets tricky. If you were activated by the state government, that doesn't count. So let's just say your state, I'll use Texas. Let's just say in Houston, they recently had a lot of flooding. A very large portion of the city was underwater. The governor called in the National Guard and the reservist. Those veterans, if they were injured, will not be eligible because they were activated by the state government. Now, let's go back a few years back and look at when New Orleans was hit by Hurricane Katrina. At that time, the federal government did activate it was actually George W. Bush that activated the National Guard. So, well, not all units, some were activated by the state government. But if you were actually in a unit that was activated by the federal government, by the president, and you went in there and you were injured and you can't work from that, you're going to be eligible for individual unemployability benefits. A lot of National Guard and reservists may not remember exactly who activated them, and that's fine. You can give us a call. That's something that we can look into. And if it was the federal government, then we maybe have something we can help you with. Now, there's a couple things here, just kind of end with this. You must be a veteran. That's the first one, obviously. The second one is you must have at least one service-connected disability rated at 60%, or 2 or more service-connected disabilities with at least one disability rateable at 40%, with a combined rating of 70% or more. Okay, that's a lot of words. What exactly does that mean? Here's what it means. If you have one service-connected disability that is rated at least 60%, you may be eligible to get IU benefits one day. Here's the other way again. If you have 2 or more service-connected disability, one of them needs to equal 40%, and then all of them together equal 70. It's like a 2-tiered system on how to be eligible for IU benefits. And for some reason, those 2 sentences confuse a lot of people. So once again, if you're confused by that and you kind of want to talk about your eligibility on that, feel free to give us a call. You know, if you're out there and you're watching this and you have more questions at the end of this video than you did before you started it, I'm sorry, but you can always call us anytime. You know, there's never a charge for legal consultations here. Our law firm focuses solely on individual unemployability benefits. That's all we do here. Our staff of almost 90 people are dedicated to nothing but individual unemployability claims and the processing of them. And you know, at any given time, we're helping thousands of clients here. So if you just want to talk about your eligibility for IU benefits, we're here. You can always check our website if you'd like to learn some more information, and that's woodslawyers.com. Thanks a lot.